Hello and welcome to episode 11 of the Goal Difference podcast. It's been a whirlwind week with Scarlet fresh from a sparkling debut on Sky Sports News. Scarlet, what's it like being a celebrity? Pretty good. Been recognised in the supermarket yet? No, but I was recognised in the pub by my neighbours. We got talking and they asked me if I was on Sky Sports, and they revealed that the reason why they knew was because the local gelato shop had informed them. So that was a pretty exciting early moment of celebrity. But in all honesty, I was really nervous. I felt very lucky to have the opportunity. But I should thank Finalysis app, really, because the reason why I was up for a Sky Sports thing is totally because I'm part of the Arsenal starting 11. So thank you to them. And thank you to the amazing people who definitely aren't bots created by me. Are you sure? Thank you to the lovely commenters. It's really meaningful. Listeners, I do encourage you to go back and find Scarlet's clip on Sky Sports on YouTube because she was sensational. But yeah, there was such a cascade of positive comments. Have you framed the comments and put them on your bedroom wall? No, and I kind of feel like I should, but I'm kind of like, if I'm the one to do that, is that not a bit weird? Anyway, I just want to hint. Is that your birthday hint? I really do actually want to properly thank everyone who watched and all those, I'm assuming Arsenal fans, but also just lovely people who were so affirming. It's just really cool. Thank you. Lola, I wasn't the only celebrity this week, was I? Because you appeared on Liverpool's premiere Thinking Football podcast. Is that what they're calling the Anfield Wrap these days? Well, yeah, I owe a massive thank you on the subject of thank yous to the one and only award-winning Rob Gutman, friend of the podcast, who I happened to bump into after the Community Shield at our local boozer, the Draper's Arms. And Lola, we're celebrities now. You can't reveal where we live. And it just shows that good things can come from losing football matches, because a mere 7 days later, after meeting Mr. Gutman, I was making my debut on the Anfield Wrap on the Sunday Best show last Sunday and fulfilled what really was a bucket list ambition of mine to appear on the Gutter Show, which, for the uneducated listeners, is the transfer rumour show that the Anfield Wrap have, which is both BAFTA nominated and award winning. So I highly recommend you check it out, not just because I'm on it, but because I was a big fan of it long before I was a contributor on the show. So thank you to Rob Gutman and thank you to the Anfield Wrap for having me. Okay, on with the show. And we have an episode stacked with the usual goal difference hijinks. We're going to kick off with some twin tuition. Then we'll dive right into the Alexander Isak derby taking place at St James's Park tonight. Gulp. Before rounding off with some lively debate prompted by our listeners' controversial questions. Stay tuned. Okay, let's dive in, Scarlet. Time for me to whip out my trusty scanner and tell our listeners exactly what you're thinking about Arsenal versus Leeds. Hold on to your hats. All right, so I think, look, everything went according to the script. When you play a promoted side, there are ways to win the game that are in any football match, but particularly when you play the promoted sides, there are ways to win the game that make you feel a lot better about it than otherwise. Clean sheet, lots of goals, new big money striker getting on the score sheet not once but twice. Lola, I debate new big money. You're interrupting the scanner's ability to do its job. So that was a tick. Your 15-year-old Max Downman managed to get on the pitch for a few minutes and make an impact. And of course, you had the massive feel-good factor around the Eberechi Eze signing. Yeah, look, huge feel-good factor around the Emirates. 5 goals, commanding performance, but I think there are still niggles because, of course, it wasn't perfect. The first goal did come from a scrappy set piece. I think if you were being hypercritical and potentially looking back on some of last season's deficiencies, you would want, the crucial game-breaking moments to not rely on a set piece. So that's item 1. Item 2 is obviously the injuries. And we know that, you would admit, Arteta has a tendency to play mind games ahead of big matches with injuries. And that's, I think that's fair game, really. That's just part of trying your best to win. So would it surprise me massively if we saw both Odegaard and Saka starting at Anfield next week? No, but I gather it's a relatively serious hamstring injury and he'll be out for a couple of weeks at least. So I think potentially there may be, despite all the positivity, a slight niggle in your mind about Saka and Odegaard's ability to remain fit and available consistently, and whether potentially their long-term futures have really been affected by the serious injuries last season. So it's pretty rosy in your garden right now, but it's not perfect. There's some of that, Lola, that I totally disagree with, but the broad strokes of what you're saying actually for once are fairly accurate, because it was a dream. It was just one of those days, it actually got sunnier. It started off cloudy, but a sunny day out of the Emirates, easy win. That's the fuel for your season. And we had so few walkovers last season for various Well, Man
reasons.
City at home.
And such little, yeah, we had meant that, but that's like the last thrashing I can remember. So I think those are the kind of meat and drink of providing confidence and sustenance to a team. We were very rarely able to string sequences of victories together last season as well. So, the feeling of back-to-back wins, it's the high of conquering a difficult fixture where at Old Trafford, and then you come and you tuck 5 away against Leeds. But I'll kind of go from the beginning to the end, because the question marks do remain for various reasons. So obviously the start, you have Eze's unveiling, which was, I don't remember the last time Arsenal have done an unveiling like that.
Was it like that for Ozil?
No, all I remember about that is the dildo. We'd already had that Tottenham game where Wenger kind of gave it away. The game where Tottenham really thought that the power shift had happened, the mystical power shift. And you also beat Man United 1-0 on the same day.
Mhm.
Anyway,
That was a good day for the Cats
it was
Robertses.
a very good day. It was a really, really good day in our family. Um, to come back to the game, Eze gets announced, just actually a very touching moment. I didn't think I would care as much, but seeing how much it meant to Eze himself was just really nice. It's a popular announcement quip to say it was only ever insert team.
I will point out that that was stolen from Van Dijk's contract renewal,
Sure,
that line.
definitely everything stolen from Liverpool. But with Eze, you really get the sense that he wanted Arsenal and it's a homecoming. And he said this quite lovely thing in his interview with Ian Wright, where he was like, well, actually, there's been a long time coming. There's been an audition for the last 4 years every time I come to the Emirates. And I just think how amazing for him that he's prevailed in a way that he wanted. So that was a great moment. First 30 minutes, turgid, difficult. And you're thinking, oh no, it's going to be one of those days where it's really hard to score. And actually, Raya made a massive save at 0-0 from a corner, despite obviously a lot of possession from Arsenal, but actually not the usual amount of control and territory. Anyway, got our goal from a set piece, and then Saka's finished. I mean, it was like the first time he had any space, any moment in the game where he was not surrounded, and he just scores, which makes it even more sad that he's now injured. And I'm sorry, Lola, I do think it being reported to journalists that he's going to be out for 3 to 4 weeks, that's not mind games. And
You just never know with Arteta.
it was quite, I mean, there's been lip reading, but it was quite clear. I feel like, and I don't have a twin tuition radar for player injuries, but I think my first feeling before knowing anything about Odegaard's and Saka's was that Odegaard's was not very serious, because it was a kind of contact one, and he played on for a bit, and he took some painkillers and it didn't really work. But he walked off, he was kind of fine. So you were like, I think you'll be okay. You felt a lot of the sadness was coming from a reaction of a player who was just gutted to have missed so much last season, and potentially also the worry of not being able to trust your body, because it was the other hamstring, but it did happen after a really powerful run.
I think it may sound a bit throwaway for me to say as part of your twin tuition that you've got serious worries about his long-term fitness, but I think sitting where I sit with a really, less passionate view of Saka, although I do really like him, of all the Arsenal players, he's probably the only one I compare. I would be worried about whether his young body at 17 was just, I don't know, if maybe it's like Michael Owen situations going on and he may never fully escape the injuries.
We'll see. I mean, for once now, and I think the slightly different tilt on this game is that then you have Noni Madueke, who can just move over to the right seamlessly, having played quite well on the left. I think plenty of Arsenal fans were happy to see Nwaneri there last season, but he's obviously not on Saka's level right now. And it's the first time that we've had a really meaningful backup, augmenting player in Madueke who is really interesting. Like, I was not that excited about the signing, I'll be honest. No petitions involved, but
Mm.
um, he's much bigger than I thought he was. He's really tall, and the other thing I would say that he's really good vibes. He was.
Is he? He didn't
I
look like good vibes when he was snatching that ball out of Cole
But
Palmer's hands
I
to take the
wonder
penalty.
if, and it's maybe also the new signing hot air, but we were told that Arteta wanted him also because of his character, and a lot of people have talked about how important his character is, and you kind of wonder, like, is Chelsea just a cesspit for mentality because it's such a weird place to play football?
Quite possibly.
But anyway, good vibes from Madueke. I also got good vibes from him at an open training, which of course I attended, but he was just really assiduous with the fans, I felt. And then what I really liked about him this time around was after the game, he was really invested in pushing Max Dowman forward. And we have seen that he's been spending a bit of time with Lewis Kelly and Ranieri, and just nice, taking care of the young ones. It's nice.
Who knew? Noni Madueke, the nice guy.
But anyway, we got our breakthrough. Saka followed up with a great goal, and then it was half time, and I was like, "Ooh, everything's going to plan." Of course, it kind of did, and it didn't after that. But straight after half time, Gyökeres just does his thing. That's one of
Do you
his
know what that
trademark
goal
goals.
reminded me of? Darwin Núñez's goal for Benfica away at the Camp Nou.
Sure, and Nunes has great goals in him. I will say I think Gyökeres as a person and a player is a bit more considered than Darwin, and maybe that is why we signed him.
Can I ask you a question? If Gyökeres's fate at Arsenal was like similar to Núñez, he scored a similar number of goals, but goals of importance that were relevant to winning titles and trophies, would you be happy with that?
Absolutely. Like I say, I think, and let's just leave the fee out of this, but I don't think the fee we've paid for Gyökeres suggests that that is star money. It's, in today's economy, 60 million is, you know, potentially a role player, depending on which team you are. Um, so Gyökeres comes in, and if he scores 15 to 20 goals, I'll be absolutely chuffed because,
Núñez never did that.
okay, if he scores important goals, I don't know how many goals Nunes got,
I
but
think
anyway.
he was, I want to say 20 all comps second season,
Okay.
15 all comps first season.
Well, that would be fine. Genuinely, I think that would be fine because I don't think, and I will keep banging this drum, that we're that far away from the title. And yes, you outscored us by a lot last season, but I don't think it's just the number 9 that needs to provide all those goals. I think everybody except maybe Saka needs to up their output. And that's why people like Noni Madueke and Eze are there. Um, so he scores his trademark goal, gets to do a celebration, and it's just perfect. Score another goal from a corner. That one was actually scrappy. I'll give you that. And then Dowman manages to come on.
It wasn't a penalty, the challenge on Downman.
Well, I think he bought it, but I'd be annoyed if it was given against me, sure. But
That's what they're
it's still a
teaching him.
penalty. He won the penalty because he beat the defender in the box, and the defender hung their leg out. So I don't mind. Like, go over. I think the reason why, so all of those reasons are why it was a great day, and it was a great day. The vibes were brilliant. I think the kit looks really good. I do think that is a factor in whether you deserve to win the league. But mixed bag because Saka went off, looked devastated. Odegaard went off, and that I've just realised, like, I just started thinking about Norgard and got really angry because I was like, why have we already got 4 injuries? 5. Ben White, Norgard, Havertz. We don't know how long those 3 are going to be out for. At some point, I'm just like, there's no excuse. There was no tournament this summer. We had a perfect preseason, perfect foundation for your physical health. And obviously, you can't always legislate for the type of injuries you're going to get. But I think we have mitigated, as I said, some of the potential acute pain of losing these players already by signing other good players. And, someone like Eze makes the loss of Odegaard more palatable. Nwaneri played well. The other mixed feeling I had was about him because the game at the end became about Max Dowman and the fans loving Dowman and him winning the penalty out on the right-hand side when Nwaneri had a few minutes last season. Nwaneri was playing in the big boy position in Odegaard's role, physical, central, tactically important. And I just suddenly felt like people aren't going to give you allowances anymore. You're not going to have all the space Downman's had. We know that Ranieri's a great dribbler. I just was like, I don't know, having my own dialogue about whether that was painful for him to see,
I
because
mean,
there's another cab off the rank now. And I think, look, it's obvious that Ranieri's class, like on the ball, and we're used to seeing it now, but the way he moves with the ball is amazing. And he's only 18, you know, Downman's 15. It makes him seem old, but he's not. And I think he's got a big future ahead of him. I think him playing in that Odegaard position is a testament to the fact that he's grown and the fact that Arteta now trusts him to play a kind of more integral position on the field. Um, but yeah, people were chanting Super Maxi Dowman. Eze's got the number 10 shirt for Arsenal now. It made me think, well, it's nothing new, football fans. Am I saying football fans are fickle? Yes. um, uh, because I thought of Jack Wilshere, Smith Rowe, all of these.
But you know, it's part of being a big club is that new players are always going to be coming in, and that's why you have to be the very best if you're going to make it as an academy player. I mean, there's been a lot of talk about blocked pathways this week at Liverpool because allegedly the reason that Liverpool aren't in for Barcola or Malik Fofana is about not blocking pathways through Angamoa. But then obviously you look at it and think, I would be staggered if Arne Slot uses Engamoa before the first League Cup game, unless by some miracle we find ourselves 4-0 up tonight with 5 minutes to play.
Yeah, well, Lola, I hope you don't tonight, but I think it's definitely a delicate balance to strike. And one of the big upsides of last season, which was really tough injury-wise for Arsenal, was that I think we saw more of Miles Skelly and Ethan Ranieri than we otherwise would have. And they both had, to varying degrees, amazing breakout seasons, and that is just such a pleasure. But anyway, I think it's time for me to do some scanning on you, Lola, about how you're feeling ahead of the Alexander Isak derby.
As it will only be known now for all time.
So I'm going to get my scanner out, which is different to Lola's scanner. Ready, listeners? Here we go. Okay. Here's what I think you're thinking. I think you are feeling quite uncertain. Your first result in the league was not a convincing win. You've had to wait now. Now you know what it feels like. Watch your rivals play, watch City lose, watch Arsenal win 5-0. It doesn't feel good to watch your rivals win easily. And you've got a really hard fixture, a fixture that has been made harder by the relationship between your club and Newcastle. I think it's sort of like you've given it a lot. You've given it a lot on Twitter.
Me,
Everyone, the fan base, the club. There's beef, and now you have to go and back it up at St James's Park against the team who will try and kick you. And I think you're thinking, God, it's a bit rubbish that this game is now before the visit of Arsenal, because they might beat you. They'll try and beat you up, and they're going to try harder. And people are talking about Joel Linton as if he's some kind of criminal. And you know, it may well end up being quite a vanilla game of football, but I doubt it. I think Newcastle are going to come even more than they normally do to hurt you. And I think that's, you're worried, and I think you're worried that that's a bit of a mistake in how the club has allowed this to play out, where this uh, rivalry has brewed between two teams that aren't traditional rivals, and it's now, you know, a derby game at St James's Park, which no one wants, let's be honest. So I think you're feeling apprehensive, but also like you have the opportunity to stamp your quality over your annoying club that are holding on to Alexander Isak, and they shouldn't, and they should let him go because they're rubbish and you're better. I think that's what you're feeling, Lola.
I'm going to be magnanimous and say that, like with what I said, there is some truth to what you say. I think it's important that you've alluded to the fact that this is a very recent rivalry. Historically, I've always had a soft spot for Newcastle, and I've always appreciated the fact that their fans are incredibly passionate and loud. I think for me, I mean, it's quite obvious when I started to dislike them, and that was when PIF came along, because I disagree with football clubs being owned by nation states. But Neil Atkinson of the Anfield Wrap said something very smart about what it's like to go to St James's Park, which is whenever the big boys are in town at St James's Park, it's loud, it's passionate, and it's about as loud and passionate as a football stadium can get. So do I think that it's going to be, as Neil said, louder, more passionate, more angry than they were when we came to town last season, when Arsenal came to town for the second leg of that League Cup semi-final? No, because I think they were about as loud and passionate as it's possible to be in a football stadium. So I think it's going to be really tough. I'm always, always suitably apprehensive before a trip to St James's Park. And will be really, really pissed off if one of our players ends up being seriously injured. But, and I hate the fact that Joelinton seems to be able to get away with literally murdering people and not get yellow cards. But anyway, I think there is a risk that Newcastle fans have worked themselves and their players up into a bit of a frenzy. And while there's definitely the possibility that they get an early goal, the place goes nuts and that, it's a siege, I think there's equally the possibility that there's an early refereeing decision that goes against them, or we get an early goal and really flatten that momentum and boisterousness that they might have in the crowd. So there are rarely games where you necessarily feel that all three results are in play. There is a world in which Newcastle steamroll us and beat us, to nil, and not comfortably necessarily, but bully us. There is that world. They did so in the Carabao Cup final. There's a world in which it's an incredibly closely fought draw, like it was last season at their place. There is also a world where Liverpool can convincingly put them away because we are the better team and they have worked themselves into a frenzy. So all three results are on the table. I'm not looking forward to it. I'm definitely looking forward to it being in the past. But as far as Arsenal coming up at Anfield next, I actually agree with Rio Ferdinand on this one, which is that having a big game after a big game is a good thing, because if you don't get the result you want, what better scenario to bounce back in? But I'm feeling probably more uneasy about our potential lack of transfer business if we can't get Isak in, because I think we really are short of bodies up top. And I don't like this the kind of stubborn stance that I recognise with FSG, which is that if we can't get the guy, then we won't get anyone. I know that we've been a sensibly run club, and that's why we've been able to spend money this summer. And I appreciate the fact that we don't just spray money around like some of our rivals. But it makes me hesitant. I think it's stubborn, and I think, as I said on the Anfield Wrap gutter, I think it's not often that you get the chance to go into the summer as the champions. And I think when you're in that situation, especially given the power balance at play in the league at the moment, we saw with Man City, I think it's going to take a lot longer than people necessarily think for them to recover. But yeah, I think you only get one chance in this situation to put your foot on the throat of the rest of the division and be like, we are the champions, and assert yourself and really push from the front. And I'd be disappointed if I felt like we cut off our noses despite our faces in not strengthening the squad around the Isak thing. But I am happy to wait until January for that, because I do just think it will happen.
Lola, I think the operative word here in this fixture is control. Eddie Howe control the anger of the fan base and his players in a productive way, which often he seems to be able to. And can Liverpool control the atmosphere, calm things down, control the game, which as a football team you should be able to do. I think it's early goals. Newcastle in those fixtures that have gone wrong at St James's are the first to score, and then it's a game state thing, and they're really good at controlling it when they go up. So it'll be interesting to see what happens.
Okay, we opened our inboxes to an Ask Me Anything from our lovely listeners, and we're going to read out some of the best questions we got asked this week. Okay, James Gaskin asks, if you had to swap places in a Freaky Friday style life swap, what would you most struggle with about your twins' life?
I think I would struggle with the horse racing, Lola. I am not a fan of the sport.
You seemed to enjoy it when I took you to Windsor the other day.
I don't think I did. There were some nice people there though.
Not nice horses.
Well, one of the horses, actually, that was insane. One of the horses nearly ran us over in, is it called the Victory Ring? The Parade Ring? The Parade Ring. Simon Cowell was there. This just all sounds like a lie, including Sky Sports. But anyway, none of it's a lie. So I think I would struggle with the horse racing. And we'll leave that there, shall we? Lola, next question coming to you from Johnny Bloom. Thank you, Johnny. How big of a club must Arsenal be to be able to ring up a player about to sign for their rivals and get him to sign for them in a matter of hours?
I sense that Johnny, friend of the podcast, is looking for a nibble on this one, and I'm not going to give it to him, because
Of course, Arsenal are a bigger club than Tottenham. I mean, that shouldn't even be a conversation, but I don't think Tottenham are really in the same ballpark as Arsenal. And I think, given Ez's history as an Arsenal fan, it always felt very likely that Arsenal would sit and watch that one from afar and make the bid once they understood the terms of the deal. So I don't think it says a lot about Arsenal to beat Spurs in the race for a player. I think you're probably right. Okay, next question. And Alex Sutton of the Weekly Freestyle, another very good podcast that you should all check out, asks, is it right for a 15-year-old to play in the first team? Look, I can see where that question is coming from. And I think probably the flippant answer is if they're good enough, they're old enough. But that is probably also the true answer. I think obviously a 15-year-old person is a child, and you're therefore responsible for a child's well-being when you put them into a scenario like a football match. And, Max Dowman played on tour against Newcastle and they weren't shy in trying to beat him up. So from a kind of safety perspective, I think it's a consideration. And I think from a kind of emotional perspective, when someone makes their Premier League debut, people are going to talk about them. I think in Max Dowman's case, it's been very hard to stop people talking about him because he's so good. So yes, I think it's right if they want to, which I assume they do. Football's also, does it make sense to say I think football is a young sport? You retire in your 30s, so 15 kind of in relation to the top of the sport age-wise is not as far away as maybe a 15-year-old in regular
Yeah, but I think in
life.
terms of look, it's not going to change because football is about winning. And if Arteta thinks that playing Diamond now might give you a better chance of winning it, not now, but maybe he'll throw him on when you need a goal. But
I don't think he will.
But if he thinks that playing Max Diamond now is going to help Arsenal's chances of winning either now or at some future point, then I understand why he does it. Everyone's doing it. This is not a criticism of Arteta. But do I think that 15 is too young? I didn't realize that he's not 16 until the end of the year. Like, that feels insane to me. And I wonder if there should just be some kind of a rule, which is it's 16 and above.
Well, I think there's two things here. One is Lamine Yamal has definitely moved the dial on like the kind of normal age we expect players to break through. And two, I think as long as like proper safeguarding is in place, i.e., like, we know that Miles Lewis Kelly and Ethan Nwaneri couldn't change with the first team players for a lot of last season until they turned 18. Then, would it be to his kind of developmental detriment to be held back from playing? Like, obviously, you don't want to cause an injury, you don't want to overplay someone, but at the end of the day, you are growing a player.
Well, and I think that's really relevant to the Saka conversation and the kind of Michael Owen, Wayne Rooney debate, which is, can you, as you say, players have such a short window, short career, which is why you should let them move when they want to move. I'm joking. But no, I think it does have a place in that Saka conversation, which is, do we understand enough the impact of putting a 15-year-old's body into a situation with fully developed men at that age and how that might affect him physically down the line? I don't know if we do.
I think it's a valid concern, definitely. And I think Saka benefited from breaking through at Arsenal at a time when there wasn't a lot of other good stuff going on, but he also maybe suffered for that because it was him and it was only him for a long, long time. Okay, Lola, I have a question for you, which I anticipate you might not like.
Given this question of big billing, you've been sort of teasing it for a long time, so I'm excited and apprehensive in equal measure to see what it is.
Here's the question for you, Lola. And it is from a listener called Harry Churchill Coleman, who it won't surprise you to know is an Arsenal fan. He says, every fan base has its frustrating idiosyncrasies. I think Arsenal fans can be deeply cynical and conspiratorial, but there's a sense of entitlement in the Liverpool fan base I don't see anywhere else. They seem to think of themselves as the protagonists of football. The latest example of this phenomenon being the meltdown some Liverpool fans have had about the Eze song. There's no real evidence that the structure of the song started with Liverpool, so why do they assume it belongs to them? And he has attached as supporting evidence an article, which I'm just going to read you the headline of. And here's the article headline. Liverpool tried to trademark Ale 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 song despite 6 other clubs adopting the chant beforehand. That's the article.
Right. I think for Liverpool fans, that word entitlement actually feeds quite disappointingly into a discourse about always being the victims, which speaks to a really sad part of the football club's history and, the tragedies associated with the football club. So I think that the two are interlinked. And I think that opposition fans' use of the word entitlement for me is pejoratively linked to the idea of always being the victim. So I would dismiss that out of hand. I don't think that the Liverpool fan base are entitled. As for songs, I think I feel really strongly that football songs are about expressing the culture of your football club on the football pitch. And the culture of a football club is this whole tapestry of different factors that you pick up on the pitch, off the pitch. It's about fans and players coming together and about shared experience. And if we take LA as an example, that came from Liverpool's European pedigree. It came from a deep run in Europe. It was a run to the Champions League final in
But
Kiev
it was
that year.
widely used before that.
It was used in Europe amongst other European teams, but it had never been used in England before. So Liverpool adopting LA, we were the first club to adopt it in England, and that is true. So I kind of understand that. It's about that. The reason for that song being a Liverpool song is about European pedigree and European history and stories. So in a strange way, to me, it kind of makes sense when Villa sing it because they sing it about winning the Champions League. So that has always made sense to me. When Arsenal sing it, it's like, and I think the same thing about their reinvention of the Chiesa song is actually not understanding the roots of where and why a song exists. And so we look at the Arsenal's version of LA. Obviously, you're not a club associated massively with European success. And then we go to you've taken the Luis Diaz chant for Gabriel Martinelli. Now, this is where I'm going to get a bit granular here. The other thing that is important about football songs is it's a chance to show creativity and originality. So you can borrow a tune. As football fans, we're all mostly singing out of the same songbook. But Arsenal literally took the entire structure of the Diaz song, changed around a few words to make it fit for Martinelli. There was just no creativity even in the structure. And then we go to the Chiesa song, which of course comes from a Dean Martin song, which has associations with Italy, which is why it was chosen for our Italian player, and it's applied to Eze. And again, there's no lyrical sophistication. It's literally copy, paste, cross out name of player, insert name of player. And I think for Arsenal, the culture club, the club that in the 90s and 2000s invented cool, I just think do better. Do better. I think they should have why isn't there? My real question to you is why isn't there a kind of grassroots like the Ashburton Army try to, but why aren't there grassroots initiatives of fans trying to come up with original Arsenal songs? Like, why are they just being sort of pirated from other clubs?
You know what? I think there's a lot to sympathize with in that assessment. I don't always think Arsenal fans have been the most creative. But I think the part that I don't get about it is the real anger that Liverpool fans feel, because as you say, most football fans are singing out the same songbook. So, that's the nature of football chants. They travel across terraces because they're catchy, because they're rubbish, and because, that's why, you know, Johnny was telling me, "Oh, they're singing duh, 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 football in a library," the Leeds fans, because it's just a classic EFL chant. And obviously it's different, it's the name of a player. I will add that the Ashburton Army did try to use that song for Declan Rice a few years ago. So that predated it being used for Chiesa, and predated it being used
But
for
I think
Eze.
sometimes songs taking off and fitting, like LA, like actually with the Luis Diaz song, which is to Bella Ciao, which is a socialist anthem. For me, for a song to take off for a football club, there has to be some kind of cultural relevance to the song itself
But
and
I actually
why
think
it
that's
fits.
self-important.
No, it's not self-important because the songs that you sing are about representing the identity of your football club. And you should care about that because that's about atmosphere and that is the reason fundamentally why when you walk into the Emirates, it's like a copy and paste AI generated atmosphere. It's not real. Whereas there's real kind of sensitivity and cultural alignment about the things that we do and say as Liverpool fans.
Lola, what I'd say to that is it's true. I don't think Arsenal as a club have always managed or platformed the atmosphere in the most nuanced way. But I don't think that that says anything about the individuality and authenticity of the love for the fans have for the team. So I would be careful with making that.
It's about,
but that's what songs are about. They're about showing your support, right?
But it's about, no, I actually don't think it's just about showing your support. It's about identity. As a football fan, singing songs is the only way that you can influence the game, if indeed people believe that you can. I mean, I'm sure the Newcastle fans going to the game tonight will believe that you can. So I just think it's really important. And I think what you sing and the words that you sing reflect your football club. And I just find my frustration is that Eze's not Italian. He has nothing to do with Italy. It's just...
What about Rice?
It's irrelevant. Neither does Declan Rice. They're just plucked. It's just references plucked out of nowhere, and it doesn't actually marry up with the player or the situation. And you had a brilliant suggestion for an Iberi Eze song, which I think you should sing, and we can see if it will take off.
Well, this isn't actually my original suggestion. This is a few enterprising Arsenal fans, thought that a reference to Amy Winehouse's Rehab might work in this case, and I thought that was great. I will bring this to a close simply by saying the song Arsenal fans have made for Victor Gyökeres is a really good one. I really like it. It's an earworm. It was stuck in my head on holiday a month ago. It's still here. And as I was going to bed on Saturday night, I heard the plaintive call of a single man riding a line bike going, Victor Gyökeres, da 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 da, Victor Gyökeres. Like, he'd worked out the scansion and the words, but he hadn't quite worked out exactly what went where. But that's a good song.
Anyway, we're going to leave it there for today. I've been your host, Lola Katz-Roberts, and this has been my brilliant panellist and Sky Sports star, Scarlet Katz-Roberts, and we will see you in the build-up to what is the Katz-Roberts family derby. Batten down the hatches. Thank you. Bye-bye.